My mum, Anna, escaped from Vietnam by boat to Malaysia in 1989. She stayed there at a refugee camp for 2 years. She applied for permanent residency and passed the test set by the Australian government. Here she is with her belongings, about to board a bus to fly to Newcastle, Australia. She settled in Newcastle with the Vietnamese community. She lived with a friend over there, as you can see standing next to her. At the time, she was pregnant with my older sister, Angela, by her Vietnamese boyfriend, who soon arrived to Newcastle as well. However, the relationship ended and she decided to move to Sydney, where she rented a granny flat from a Dutchman. Once, the Dutchman warned my mum to lock her doors as there were many drug dealers around in the area. One day, there was an overdose in the front house, and that scared my mum. So she decided to move to the women's refuge in Como with my sister. After a year at the women's refuge, she decided to move to public housing in Villawood. And in the following years, she met Matthew at a friend's barbecue. He was a doctor, and they started a relationship and later had me. However, that relationship ended, and after that, it was just my mum, my sister, and myself. Until she met Claude. He's Swiss and works in IT. I only ever knew him as my father, and I call him Dad. In fact, it wasn't until recent years that I found out he wasn't my biological father. This is my family on holidays up in Hervey Bay in Queensland. The holiday unfortunately had to be cut short because I got very sick. I had high fevers and intense night sweats and had to be taken to hospital. I was taken to Westmead Children's Hospital, and over there I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I was prescribed 6 strong courses of chemotherapy. However, after 3 courses of chemo, my kidneys had failed and I was very sick. My face puffed up and I struggled to see. You can see me pulling my eye down to see my dad. I was told by the doctors that they didn't want to continue with the chemo because they thought the strength of it could kill me. However, after 6 months, I was on remission from leukemia, but my kidneys were severely damaged from the chemo, so I was put onto dialysis. After 6 months, I was able to return to school, the same school my sister was in, and was able to catch up with all the schoolwork. I didn't have much energy back then to participate in very robust sports. However, I did have enough energy to build and fly my own model planes. It was a hobby I enjoyed very much and was one that gave me a sense of responsibility and control to keep the plane up in the air. This is me in my bedroom when I was 14. My mum hooked me up to the dialysis machine every night from around 7 or 8 p.m. and that would go on overnight to the next morning around 8 a.m. These are the boxes of fluid that went into my abdomen to filter my blood because my kidneys weren't working. I was on dialysis for 9 years. This is a photo of an ultrasound of my kidneys. After realizing that my levels of creatinine was rising, all the doctors knew that it was an indication that the dialysis wasn't being effective anymore, and they recommended a transplant. My mum was reluctant to put my name on the transplant list, as when I was 7 years old, my kidneys actually had returned to 70% function, and she held hope that that would happen again. She was a firm believer in natural medicines, so we began an intense treatment of acupuncture and herbal remedies. However, after a few months with no improvement, my mum gave in and we all decided to put my name on the transplant list. My mum and dad, Claude, were separated, but were still living together. Nevertheless, my dad offered to donate his kidney to me, but during the testing that he had, the doctors found he developed an antibody and the match was no longer a suitable one. So my name remained on the transplant list. A month later, on the first day of school holidays, I was very excited and was hanging up my new speaker system that I just got. I got a call from the doctors that day, and the doctors said to me, in a few simple words, they had found the perfect match for my kidney. In the moment of shock, I dropped the phone and started crying immediately. My mum walked into the room and she asked what was the matter. I told her the big news, and she started crying immediately as well. They told me that I needed to be at the hospital in 2 hours at 4 o'clock, so we immediately started packing. This is my doctor. Before the operation, he explained to me all the potential risks and how the procedure would go down. It was quite some news to take in. I was very excited, but at the same time really quite anxious, as I knew it was quite a big operation. I went into theatre at 7 p.m. and the operation itself took over 6 hours. I was told by the doctors that as soon as the kidney was transplanted, it began functioning immediately. This is my sister and my mum besides me, just after the operation. After 2 months, I was able to return to school, however, was unable to continue with my woodwork elective as it was too vigorous and the sawdust particles were a potential health hazard. So I was advised to take up a new course, and I took up media studies, which I enjoyed very, very much. Shortly after, my mum bought me my first DSLR camera, as you can see. It was a Nikon D50-100. This is my favorite photo. It's of the galaxy. Before the transplant, I would have never been able to go out at night because I was always stuck in my room, hooked to the dialysis machine. It's an absolutely fantastic feeling to be able to wake up in the morning, not having to wait for Mum to unlock me from the machine, to be able to simply get out of bed immediately and make my own breakfast and walk out into the world. It's just a feeling you can't describe. This is a photo of the pool up at Narrabeen Beach. It's been 5 years since the transplant now, and this year I was asked by Transplant Australia to become an ambassador for their upcoming transplant games. I'll be participating in bowling in September and extremely excited about that. My mum has been with me every step of the way from the first time up until now, and I thank her very, very much for that. But thanks to the transplant, I am now able to live my own independent life. Thank you.